In Essential Test 6.5b, we are going to continue briefly talking about Piaget, but then also add a second psychologist who is going to present an alternative view on cognitive abilities. This concept map is only 2 boxes, as you see here, so although I have H for horizontal, you could very easily hold this piece of paper vertically as well. I'll return back here to the task text. You can pause the video now to copy down the portion in yellow. So to carry on what we talked about Piaget the other day, so we typically talk about psychologists, and I don't often talk about the criticisms out there. We did with Milgram, we did with a few other individuals, Zimbardo too. Piaget is an interesting psychologist because I gave him 3 key psychologist icons because in the grand scheme of things, he has contributions in so many different aspects of the field, whether it's just developmental psych or education or any other topic. However, modern research suggests that as a whole, Piaget underestimated the overall ability of children. Although he definitively pinpoints roughly 8 months as the marker where object permanence will be developed, where children will no longer be tricked by those games of peekaboo. Researchers such as Renee Bellinger argue that, some children might be able to, depending on the task, exhibit object permanence way, way younger, in some cases months younger, which when a child's only 8 months old is a pretty significant underestimation. She and other researchers have suggested, as a whole, children can exhibit some of the qualities that Piaget thought that they would lack way earlier than he ever suggested. And that shouldn't in and of itself totally discredit everything that the Piaget has offered. In many ways, the timeline and the notion that our skills develop through maturation, with this strict timeline of brain development that allows these skills to develop within this really rigid timeline, it's allowed us to make really great predictions about children's behavior. He may have been off a year or two here, a year or two there, a month there, but it's allowed us to develop toys based on his findings so that toys are appropriate on a cognitive level, not just on a physical movement, motor skill level. It's allowed us to make tweaks to our understandings of education. So although, yes, as a whole, he probably underestimated the ability of children, his contributions are still pretty significant in the field of development. I'd like you to watch the clip here at the bottom. It's a clip of Renee Bellinger showing some of the manners in which we've studied Piaget, specifically showing how he underestimated the skills of children at a very young age with the concept of object permanence. The alternative view on cognitive development. So if Piaget is not right, is there any alternative perspective as to how we develop cognitive skills or thinking skills? Well, yeah, there's Lev Vygotsky. If anybody chooses to become a teacher, I can almost guarantee that at some point in your academic career learning about education, you'll encounter Lev Vygotsky and the theory known as the zone of proximal development. As a whole, Vygotsky disagreed with Piaget. He didn't think that cognitive skills fit this really strict timeline that we just progressed through, as Piaget offered. Instead, he argued that our cognitive skills, whether that's our language skills or our math skills, cooking, whatever it might be, developed based on what's called the zone of proximal development through interactions with social peers, such as teachers, such as caregivers, such as babysitters, whoever it might be, instructors. The idea behind the zone of proximal development is pretty simple. I would like you to copy down this visual here at the bottom, this arrow. I think it's a really simple arrow that really visualizes the zone of proximal development. And this is the conclusion of the concept map. Basically, the zone of proximal development works like this. It has 3 levels. We'll start all the way to the left. All the way to the left on the visual is the things that you can do on your own without anybody's help. So depending on where you are in your math career, there are things that you can do where nobody needs to help. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, obviously some more sophisticated math skills at your age. But thinking of whoever it is at whatever age, there are certainly going to be math skills that that child can do on their own with no help. But then there's also going to be that nice middle ground here in the middle where these tasks are challenging and the student or the child can succeed on those tasks if an expert provides adequate support. We often call this scaffolding. So whether it's showing an example, whether it's starting the problem, whether it's doing a video demonstration, whatever it might be, that there are skills that the child could do, tasks that the child could do if they are given the adequate amount of support. And if you constantly strive to pinpoint the zone of proximal development with the learner, you can always work within this realm so that you're not giving them tasks that are too easy, things they can do on their own. And so that you also can avoid the thing all the way to the right, which is tasks that are impossible no matter how much support you provide. For example, really doesn't matter how much support you provide. You're not going to be able to do calculus before learning addition. It just simply doesn't work like that. That's in the black part over here. Things you cannot do no matter how much support you get. This zone of proximal development can be applied to basically any skill. Think about cooking, for example. If you've never cooked anything in your life at all, there are still things that you can probably do on your own. Boiling water, for example, is really, really easy. Put water in a bowl or into some type of container. Make sure the container can be heated and heat it. Very simple. You want to be a little bit better, put some salt in it, put a little bit of oil in it. But for the most part, water, heat, very easy. Well, what can you do with a little bit of help? If you've never cooked anything a day in your life, the easiest thing that I think someone could teach you to cook is pasta. Very simple, right? You get the water boiling, put a little oil in there, put a little salt, put the pasta in, cook it depending on how long you want it cooked, depending if you like it al dente or otherwise. Pretty easy to do. However, no matter how much support you get on day one, you're not cooking a cake. You're not baking a cake on day one. Too many steps, too involved. You're going to make mistakes. You don't even know how to crack an egg. Let's not get that far. That's focusing on the zone of proximal development. If I'm going to teach you to cook or someone's going to teach you to cook, let's focus on things you can do with a little bit of help, like cooking pasta. And then once cooking pasta gets into the portion all the way to the left, then we can get a little bit more sophisticated. Let's make our own tomato sauce. And then eventually we'll start to worry about baking cakes and things like that. But let's progressively always work within the zone of proximal development and develop these skills progressively. The reason why this is a contrast to Piaget, just to go back to the top here, is according to Vygotsky, kids could learn those conservation tasks if they are taught in this really precise manner. Kids could develop hypothetical thinking. Maybe a child could understand chess at the age of 7 if the instructor that they have is really in tune with the zone of proximal development, constantly pushing them a little bit further up. And then eventually that child might understand hypothetical thinking way before Piaget ever suggested it was possible.